Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Iain Gillott from IGR, and we're joined today by Joe Schmelzer from Nextivity, who I'll let introduce himself in a minute. Our interview today is being conducted as part of our research on the in-building wireless ecosystem, together with Connected Real Estate magazine. So with that, Joe, let's dive into it. Who are you? What do you do? And what does Nextivity do? And what problem do you solve for the in-building wireless environment?
Okay, hey, thanks, Ian. It's great to be here. Again, I'm Joe Schmelzer. I'm in charge of products here at Nextivity. We are about 12 years old. We are in the in-building space. We're a chipset company, so everything we do starts with our chipset. We're a soup to nuts product provider in this category. I think I said 12 years old. Carrier history, so we have about 200 carrier customers that we've worked with over the last 10 years or so. Our products are deployed globally on multiple carrier networks. But what we do is we solve in-building cellular coverage problems. And we do that with a variety of platforms and a variety of techniques that I think we'll talk about.
Okay, great. And so what sort of in-building spaces do you address with Nextivity? And specifically, I think you've got the Cel-Fi product, which I've looked at before, but what sort of space do you address there?
Yeah, so we have a variety of platforms. We have enterprise products. We have SMB residential products. We've shipped hundreds of thousands of units into the residential category. But we have really a wide variety of platforms and products that support a variety of industry categories, including, for example, mobile and IoT solutions. So what do we do? In-building cellular coverage is a problem. It's a problem that everyone recognizes. The carriers recognize it. Enterprise owners recognize it. Everyone understands that it's quite difficult to provide great in-building cellular service. Of course, networks were built outside, and people are inside. You know, your mobile calls originate and terminate most of the time inside. So that can be a problem. And as things have become more amplified, as our handsets have become more of a part of our daily lives, poor cellular coverage is just not an option. In the business context, it's become mission critical. Our operational lives, our business lives have become, as I said, amplified. So we're all running things like our CRM systems, Salesforce, Oracle, all of these variety of solutions on our handsets. Even our video conferencing, all these other things are happening over our mobile devices. So it's extremely important that we have great coverage. On the personal side as well, you see cord cutting. Broadband is not necessarily being delivered to every single dwelling unit. Individuals are installing mobile, fixed wireless access terminals and 4G terminals for their data. So mobile service is becoming a really important part of everyone's lives. In the commercial real estate context or in connected real estate context, people will walk in, evaluate a property. The first thing they'll do is pick up their phone, see what their service looks like, try to make a call. If they don't have good service, they'll turn around and walk out. So it's becoming, people call it the fourth utility. It's becoming an important part of a connected experience and a value proposition that will differentiate from one space to another.
Good. Yeah, we've certainly seen that from our research. We did a survey a few years ago of people using cellular in building, and there's a lot of people sit at their desks using their own phone, their own tablet. It could be they're watching a nanny cam or a pet cam.
Right.
It could be they want to do banking and don't want to go through the corporate firewall. Those types of things.
Yep.
So from the building projects you've been involved in, what makes CelFi unique? And here we can get into a little bit of discussion about the carriers as well. What sort of relationship do you have with the carrier? Because obviously you have to bring the signal source into the building. Yeah,
that's a great question. So we're a bit unique, I think, in this market where we really have a lot of our friends and competitors in this space have kind of made a deal one way or the other. Either they're a carrier company or they're an enterprise or channel company. Nextivity really has managed to do both successfully. So we have a long history of carrier relations. Our first 10 years, we sold only through carriers. We constantly go through their labs. We're constantly being evaluated by them. They use us in their infrastructure. Their RAN engineers are very confident and comfortable with what we do. So we have this carrier pedigree that has really, in our minds and for our customers and for our partners, it's elevated our products. Our products are carrier grade, they're carrier friendly. But over the last few years, we've expanded our presence into more of an enterprise direct sort of selling model. And that's because the carrier, while they can bring service levels and they can bring sort of quality of solutions and a resource base to a given issue, they're not as great in delivering things in a time to market or an ROI model that will support enterprise. And particularly when you get to a space that's not, if you've got a stadium or if you've got an airport or if you've got something with super high brand equity, you can entice the carriers to come and join you and really serve that facility. But if you're not one of those sorts of spaces, which is 95% of everyone, it's going to be very hard for the carrier really to derive an ROI and for the carrier to make sense of that time spent. So we can go direct to the enterprise through our partners, and we can deliver solutions to that space to cover those kinds of buildings in an effective way to deliver an ROI and a great user experience without sort of involving the carriers or requiring carrier involvement. So you don't have to deal with things like retransmission agreements, contracts, signal source is a big issue. That's one thing that's very unique about our products is we can sort of support a multiplicity of signal source. If you want to bring in a BTS or a small cell and bring that signal source to the building and you have a way to make that happen, we can hook into that, no problem. If you don't have a signal source and you need a solution immediately, if you have a certificate of occupancy at risk or holding up your ability to lease your space, we can put a system in a week and have an off-air signal source and still deliver an awesome experience where everyone's happy and you've gotten there fast. So that's something that's very unique about Nextivity.
Okay, good. So where do you fit into the ecosystem? If I'm a building owner and there's some pictures behind you there, let's say I've got the manufacturing plant, and I need a solution. I come to you. What's the process that you go through, and who else are you going to bring into that process to get me started?
Yeah, sure. We love that question. So when you ask that question to some of our friends in the industry, I always get a chuckle out of the answer, because the answer that you'll hear from some others is, okay, look, you put in this really awesome equipment, and then all you have to do is phone the carrier and have them come and hook it up. And then everybody in the audience who's tried that kind of, winces in pain, and people who have gone down that route, and people who are unaware of that complexity kind of, it sounds like a great idea. So to answer your question, there's a couple ways to engage this value proposition if you're a building owner or in this industry. I'd say there's two paths. First path, if you're building a stadium, you're building an airport, call the carrier. If you have a corporate liable, if you've got 20,000 employees in a corporate liable deal with AT&T or Verizon, you can interest them in supporting your needs. Give them a call, see if they're interested. That's fine. Perfectly doable plan if you fit into that category. If you're someone else, where let's say you're in what we will call the middle price, or if you're in that space where you've got a property or a space that's say below 500,000 square feet, and you've got MDUs, or you've got a mixed use commercial space, it's going to be tough for you to really get the carrier to engage with you in a time frame that's going to work for you and deliver your ROI. So there's two things you can do. We have channel partners that are specialized in delivering in-building coverage, and they have a full-blown ecosystem that is designed for supporting this requirement. So if you're lucky enough to have, say, an IT department in your, with your company or in your group, your IT department, through their standard channels, through their standard distribution and IT support channels, if they do a little poking around, then these in-building solutions will quickly come up. All of our partners in that ecosystem have a good presence, and you'll see this ecosystem come forward of people who can solve in-building problems for you. And that's if you have an IT-centric sort of a position or capability with your business enterprise. The other way to go about it, if let's say you're building a new space, let's say you're maybe a building owner, you don't have a mature, sophisticated support network under you, contact your general contractor. The GCs, the sophisticated CRE GCs, all have really become infused with this space. They're all very aware of this problem. A lot of times what happens is these sorts of cellular coverage problems will come up when the building's ready for a CO, or you're sort of ready to turn up and start leasing and bring in tenants, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, we have a coverage problem because now your space has been built out. You have some infrastructure inside your building that's creating some cellular issues for you. Call your GC. Your GC is going to know, he's going to have partners in this space that he's worked with or familiar with that can quickly turn around and deliver something for you. And of course, we're confident in making those recommendations because we have a pretty strong presence and ecosystem with these people who can deliver that to you.
Okay, good. So if I'm the building owner, right, I've got commercial real estate, and I've got an existing building, and I've got this problem. From start to finish, can you set an expectation of how long you would typically see before I could have a solution in place? Assuming I don't have to get the signal source from the carrier, if I'm bringing it from outside, what's the minimum, if you like?
This is a fantastic question for us because this is where we can really shine. I mean, we appreciate some of the very complex and capable systems that are out there. Some of the big iron gas companies can deliver some awesome solutions, but what they can't do is they can't do it in the same time frame that we can. So we can turn up the system, and we literally are able to turn up systems in a couple days. We had just because it's fresh, we had a company, a fairly large, well-known brand company, call us just before the Christmas holiday, and they had a problem where they had a fairly large MDU situation that they were trying to get leased and get rented, and they realized they had a cellular problem. They couldn't get anything done. They had to get this job finished before Christmas. They called us mid-December, and we were done before New Year's. So in our context, our partners in our ecosystem, they can turn around these buildings and these spaces incredibly fast. Depends on how large the space is and how much you have to do in it. But from an equipment and requirements standpoint, you can turn it on immediately. Our equipment is able to be deployed without sophisticated contracts and rebroadcast agreements or retransmission agreements. You can literally acquire the equipment, make a plan, and install it, and all fully legal, fully with carrier endorsements, and carrier-grade equipment. So without any concern or risk or hesitation to do that.
That's good. It's good. So what do we hear lots of times is somebody moves into a building, the IT guys or whoever has checked the signal, thought it was fine, they move in, everybody moves in.
Yeah.
And the available signal that's there, of course, is now shared amongst everybody in the building, and suddenly there's a problem. So the ability to get in there quickly is really key there. So I'm commercial real estate guy. What have I got to look forward to over the next few years in terms of new developments, new technology? What's coming down the pipe that I need to be aware of?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, of course, if you've opened your internet browser in the last few months, probably something related to 5G has come up. We're very excited about 5G as well. We think it's going to be, the promise of 5G is awesome, especially some of the initial deployments. We're going to look a lot more like fixed wireless access or wireless broadband style access. And for a building owner, that could be a very interesting thing for a building owner to consider, because now you sort of have a different paradigm possible for how you're wiring up your building and how you're delivering broadband service or cellular service to your building. So I think the 5G technology in the CRE context is really interesting. I think we're definitely not there yet. Specifications and products are still being designed and delivered. It's definitely not rolled out into that space yet, but if I'm in the CRE space, I'm going to be keeping my eye on 5G. If I've got a build that I'm planning for, say, 2021, I'm definitely going to have 5G in my thoughts. I'm going to be thinking about that.
Yeah. So the second thing I would be very interested in and tracking if I'm in the commercial real estate space is public safety and the emerging requirements in the public safety domain. FirstNet has been funded by the federal government. The FirstNet initiative is absolutely real, and it's growing very quickly. They have over 500,000 subscribers already for FirstNet, and something like 5,000 public safety agencies nationwide have been signed on. So these requirements and these technologies are coming into your building today. I would be very interested in tracking those requirements. The legislation is also evolving rapidly to support these new in-building coverage requirements, whether it's FirstNet or your more traditional LMR systems. As a building owner, you should be definitely looking at those systems, looking at FirstNet in your area, looking at your first responders and public safety requirements, and making sure that your buildings are capable of passing the testing that's coming in. And those things could affect the certificate of occupancy, so very much worth getting around.
And I think they're both, I agree with you, I think they're also good for us as an industry because they're presenting new ways for us to get in building new spectrum, obviously new capabilities, and the way, as you said, with the fixed broadband addressing a need that's been there for some time. So,
yeah.
All right, so this is good. Final question here. It's one for you personally. You're the Senior Director of Products here for Nextivity. So the question I always ask at the end is, what keeps you awake at night? Not so much the dog barking or kids or whatever, but what is it that from a in-building wireless point of view, from an industry point of view, that if we don't address today, in a couple of years, is going to come back and hurt us, and we'll say, darn it, I really wish we addressed that in 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's sort of an easy one for me. One of the things we deal with as a company is we deal with, so our infrastructure and our product offering is we're very focused around a digital distribution model and Cat5 or Category 5, which is essentially Ethernet. And so that's, you asked me a question about how fast can we deploy. Well, our answer to that is how fast can you set up a Wi-Fi hotspot? If you can set up a Wi-Fi hotspot in an hour, then you can deploy our systems in the same time frame because the architecture is very similar. We use Category 5 cable, and it's dead simple. And we try to put a lot of smarts into our equipment that make all the setup and the configuration stuff happen magically. So if you're an installer or you're a builder, you don't have to worry. You don't have to have a PhD in engineering to use our equipment. So that's sort of our foundation. In the industry, you hear a lot of. I'm gonna be a bit controversial here. Maybe I'll call it FUD. You can look up the acronym later. But there's a lot of FUD out there around fiber, and the fiber, of course, is incredibly important. Our backbone, our infrastructure and our backbone is all based on fiber, especially as we go to 5G. We go to these incredible amounts of data. IoT is going to drive huge amounts of data as well. And fiber is absolutely critical. The fiber infrastructure is critical for supporting all of those initiatives. But one of the challenges, you hear some of the companies in the space are essentially saying you need to have fiber in your building. And you really have to think that through. You really have to think that through about how far does that fiber infrastructure go? Do you run fiber to every apartment? Do you run fiber to your point of entry of your building, or how do you do that? And so there's a lot of people out there spending a lot of time talking about how everyone needs fiber, and I think there's definitely a degree of truth to that. But where does the fiber endpoint stop? And the reason that it keeps me up at night is you have somebody in the CRE space, and they talk to an installer or an integrator, and if that integrator is all in on fiber, then you're going to get a system that's $3 or $4 a square foot proposed to you. And if you're a CRE, a building owner, or somebody in that space, you're going to go away thinking in-building cellular solutions cost me $3 or $4 a square foot, and then you're going to go do something else. There was a quote from the CFO of Boingo saying gas costs $1 million. I saw that. No, gas does not cost $1 million. If you're trying to build this huge system based on a fiber infrastructure, then you're gonna spend some money, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I would just say, if you're in this space, absolutely, consider fiber, bring it somewhere, but really take a hard look at, do you need to be pulling fiber cable throughout your infrastructure? I mean, how much data are you going to use, et cetera, et cetera. So
I think that's a good point, because the industry, of course, the DAS industry has grown up on big stadiums, right?
Right.
AT&T Stadium in Dallas, the Cowboys play there. There's 100,000 people. Clearly,
Sure.
they're going to have a lot of fiber. I think there was for the Super Bowl, they were talking about how many miles of fiber there were in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. But with this whole conversation, we've been talking about commercial real estate, the middle price, and bringing that solution down, that scale down. And what you're saying is, no, you don't need the fiber. We don't need that $3 to $4 per square foot. It's A, more affordable, and B, more accessible than that.
Right, exactly. That's part of the industry's challenge. Is you have a lot of great companies that have built these stadiums are now trying to expand their own product offering from the top of the pyramid down to the smaller spaces, and they're applying those solutions. And so there's a little bit of a fear factor that can be installed into this CRE market.
Well, great. Well, Joe, thank you very much. We've been talking today with Joe Schmelzer, who's Senior Director of Products for Nextivity. This interview today is part of a series we're doing of research with Connected Real Estate magazine and the report on the in-building wireless ecosystem. So, Joe, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Ian.